Okay. Getting microphone, audio settings. All right, yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and record on Zoom. It should be fine. It's okay. But go ahead and get started. Zoom is recording. Hope everybody's doing well. Let me see how many people we have up today. About 8. Nice, not bad. I do apologize for the late notice. I kind of didn't schedule my day properly, so kind of only have an hour to be here. I have to be on another call in 45 minutes, so we do have enough time to go through everything and pretty much just give like our regular Zoom time. Okay, let me see. I don't think much has changed since our initial bias from 2 weeks ago. If we delete our drawings, where's the? Oh. All right, hold on. Somebody needs to mute themselves. Mute them. Cool. Yeah, I'm also adjusting to a new computer. I bought a new computer just because. So I want to see if this will work out. But definitely by next Zoom, I will have the OBS settings all pretty much sorted out. But start off with DXY. You know what we can do? We just start over today. If we go to our weekly, basically what I'm seeing now is next week is going to be very, very important because obviously our internal or our external, I'm sorry, is technically bullish. Our structural range is really from low into high. So realistically, we should be looking for some sort of continuation. But as we start to zoom in, we do see a continuation BOS, plus if you go back to our weekly, excuse me, we are seeing, excuse me, this weekly wick POI, although technically, even if the macro is technically bullish, the swing is technically bearish, and the only reason why I say bearish is because we have taken our structure internally, we have a failed reaction, right? So even though we do have a bullish continuation BOS, right, we do have our continuation based on the previous momentum. So as of right now, I really do want to see whether or not we will bounce off of our weekly POI, and this weekly POI is pretty important in my opinion. We could even narrow it down because this is really going to tell us whether or not we're going to continue this overall bullish direction that we're looking at from the weekly standpoint. But something I don't like to see, the gap. I know a couple of you were struggling with gaps. I typically ignore them. Different brokers show different things. So I just kind of focus on candles and not really gaps. And I just disregard any sort of gap because they don't necessarily need to fill. Even though they more than likely do fill, we don't really have information on when it will fill. So I don't really like to, make too many judgments just solely off of gaps, just because it is a bit inconsistent. But from what I can see now, apologize, I'm trying to adjust to this new mouse. So like I said, we do have our POI in place technically from the H4, and we also have our weekly POI that we technically tapped perfectly, but we haven't really given a full reaction. However, what I don't like, actually, I'm going to take those words back. We have seen a clear reaction due to the continuation BOS after the initial tap. So because that has now taken structure out once again, right? In my opinion, if we start coming back down here, this is going to be a very crucial area, whether or not we are going to continue bullish or bearish. But as of right now, I do see, right, this previous liquidity being taken. And the only reason why I'm assuming that is because we have, right, the internal reaction here. The internal reaction has given us, obviously impulsive movements in order to do that. So as soon as we have the counter CBOS, the counter CBOS is now within the original direction, which is technically bearish. So in my opinion, this should probably continue lower. And the only way that I'm going to essentially invalidate that is if we break here. And the reason why that is a very crucial point in terms of invalidation is because we've already had the CBOS, meaning this is a confirmed reaction based on high to low internally. So if we are to break here, then I would assume a bullish movement. But as of right now, especially because we technically have taken out a previous POI, we didn't see a reaction based on the POI. I do see this continuing a bit lower, and that would obviously consequently mean AU/EU towards the upside, at least for the short term. After we take out our liquidity, it is going to be a bit intriguing just because we are within our weekly POI range, and we do know that the overall macro is bullish. However, we do know that pretty much almost every other time frame is bearish. So just something to be wary about. AUDUSD, this one's been a bit messy since I believe our last Zoom. Excuse me. Because, right, if we start over, right, we know where our swing structural range is. Okay, somebody's there. However, just because of how the macro has been, which is obviously bearish, and if you guys remember back in 2021, we failed to break a high. The overall macro still technically is bearish here, right? The swing technically is bearish. And we do see a continuation BOS based on a solidified point, another continuation BOS. However, the more significant one would be here. This shows me the pullback, and we have a CBOS immediately following that. So because we have our initial structural range being bearish, we have our confirmed reaction after taking out a very significant major intraday high. So because the major intraday high has been taken, this is technically our pullback, but because now, right, we have taken out the internal leg, that being this here, right, we are now, in my opinion, still going to be bearish, at least from the major intraday swing POV. As we start to zoom in, right, we know that we had a push internally in order to take out, right, a very significant point of liquidity, right? As soon as that had happened, right, we obviously have our pullback. So if I'm looking straight at structure, I'm looking at high into low, obviously into retracement due to CBOS. Now we have the continuation of, or essentially an internal continuation, which is the pullback of the structural range. But because we now have a confirmed reaction, this is a solidified high. So because right now we are looking very, very low momentum, in my opinion, especially with this reaction, we should probably head a bit lower. Which is kind of counterintuitive to what we talked about with DXY. So if the invalidation of DXY is hit, then in my opinion, this should realistically continue lower. And this one, in my opinion, this looks a lot more bearish than this looks more bullish at the moment. However, like I said, if we do break that high that we mentioned, then in my opinion, now this will come lower. And this one I am more so confident in than previous. So obviously we would be aiming for previous point of liquidity. So from here, it's pretty much continuation. So that's kind of where I'm at here. Next, EURUSD. Weekly is closing semi-bullish. However, right, that is the monthly POI that we had pointed out. Technically, we are overall bearish just based on the external structural leg, that being the macro, right? The internal. Actually delete all of this. So we already have a low and too high. We mentioned this POI, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, where we would pretty much anticipate the immediate continuation. And that is the case right now. So the only thing that is stopping us right now is another counter POI, but so this is making this kind of a bit sloppy in my eyes, at least from the overall directional standpoint. But as of right now, if we zoom into our major intraday, we aren't really seeing much. Why? Because if I take out the POIs that we had, the overall POIs that we had presented, we know where our structural range is, right? However, we did not break a low, and right now we're failing to break a high. So just due to solely relying on continuations, I am more so focusing on at least the continuation of the bullishness, mainly because we have an internal CBOS. The internal reaction has led us back into the previous high. So the only thing that's gonna pretty much invalidate my overall bullish sense would be there. So in my opinion, I wouldn't be too confident in buying here. The only reason is because it is technically within a premium. So the only thing that's holding this back, in my opinion, from going up higher would be our invalidation point. So our invalidation point, if that is to be hit, then we could potentially see something, the counter bias, which would be based on this, but I don't really like how there's two taps, especially if this second tap does not break here. If we do not break the invalidation from the second tap, I would consider that a weak order flow. And if we have weak order flow, then I don't see the bearishness sustaining itself for very much longer, at least for the medium term. So in my opinion, if we are to bet on a bias, as of right now, I should be bullish. But if our invalidation is met, then obviously that would convert. Next, gold. This one hasn't really done much, in my opinion, since our last Zoom. Let me see. Unless I'm mistaken. Actually, yeah, that is pretty much going to be the same bias that we mentioned last week. That being 2-week POI. Zoom in, we have a bullish liquidity grab, right? And then we always have a solidified low after the continuation BOSs, right? What that means, we now are still, in my opinion, bullish. This one I don't see stopping at all. So in my opinion, even if we have some sort of dip, because here we do see price start to stall out, kind of technically no man's land, at least from a minor intraday stats, where we have, right, obviously our internal structural range, the pullback, unwillingness, and then a counter unwillingness. And then now this doesn't seem like it even wants to break the high. So in my opinion, this could be seen as no man's land, therefore making a type of triangle wedge. Not really how we refer them though. So if I was to, make some sort of judgment, I would more so wait for a failed bearish transition or wait for some sort of clear high to be broken, but then that could be, a bit too late. So in my opinion, best case scenario is seeing some sort of failed bearish move into the downside. Now, whether we reach previous lows, that being down here, our previous POI, I'm sorry, down there, or we just come up and take liquidity of here and then have a bullish transition to the upside, then either would be sufficient in my eyes. But I am still overall bullish on this. I don't see why we could be bearish on this whatsoever. Last one, US 30. This one, I believe we had converted to the overall bearish bias 2 weeks ago. Seems like, in my opinion, this is still, hold on, give me 1 second. Let me delete all of this. So we know that technically we were going to be bearish last week. However, now, because our move hasn't really given us some sort of big, deeper retracement, because we have been seeing a lot of whiplashes just occurring. So the only thing that's holding me back now from the pretty much continuing our bias from last time is the failed reaction that we see here. Failed reaction, this is technically now order flow disruption. So this, in my opinion, could start being bullish. And this happened, I believe, last week, the 22nd. Yeah, last week. So just due to internal order flow disruption, and now this is really looking like weak, lower momentum, I'm sorry, in comparison to the previous impulse. And not to mention that we are overall bullish. We could be seeing some sort of, big impulse into the upside just due to the order flow disruption being present. And if you want me to zoom in there, you can clearly see the turbulence point. This is realistically where you should have, or you should be looking for those continuations to the downside. But obviously, once we have a POI and then the counter reaction, and then now we are seeing the POI be fully broken, in my opinion, this is no longer bearish, and we are looking at a medium-term bullish sense. That is, unless the invalidation is met, but as of right now, the invalidation would be down here. So I'm not too worried about an invalidation being hit, at least for the short, medium term. But yeah, like I said, I am more so focused on seeing this continue higher. So just a recap, this one, if the invalidation is met and we are bullish internally, AUDUSD, I'm more so leaning on the bearish sense just due to the transitions present, and we already had a failed bullish to bearish transition here. EURUSD, more so bullish unless we reach our invalidation. Gold, bullish, and then this one, more so looking bullish as well. So are there any questions from anybody on Zoom? Is there anything you guys want to talk about? Anything you guys took this week? Any questions on the biases? Any questions on what we talked about? Cool, because I do have about 30 more minutes. Any questions, anybody? Don't want to end this too quick. Cool. I'll just sit here for, I mean, if you guys aren't giving me any feedback, I cannot continue. So Zoom is finished if nobody wants to give any type of feedback. Cool. Yeah, no worries. Cool. So no questions, no concerns, anybody? Seems like it. But like I said in the announcement, I believe on Wednesday, if anybody has any questions, any concerns, like please don't hesitate to DM. Like there's like you guys know I'm not really hard to reach. I do tend to respond a bit late on the weekdays, but that's just because you guys know how busy my schedule is. That's why I like to take journals Fridays and Saturdays. But if you guys need anything, any type of, advice, if you guys even want to just hop on a phone call with me, I'm always free. You guys know that any type of one-on-one isn't free, but if you guys just need a phone call, just talk about whatever or any ideas or whatever, definitely, like, I'm always open to that. But definitely, if you guys need anything from me, from Sergio, from the admins, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if there's any ideas for even the Discord, definitely let me know. Just because this is kind of like the hard part now. I don't even know if it's the hard part. Maybe the hard part was making sure that everybody's good and everybody is, um, in the Discord. But now that we aren't really taking people in outside of the people who got on payment plans, like, I do want to figure out more ways to try to keep you guys more active and try to keep the culture going on, because we are now thinking in that 2 to 3 to 5 year range. Just seeing what type of progression we can make over that time. But I do appreciate you guys for hopping on. If there's any questions, like I said, just feel free to DM me. And I do appreciate you guys for hopping on, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Let's see. Hmm. Okay, here it is.